President John. We have 3 visiting Rotarians. Our speaker, Emily Serwich, is a member of the Uptown Charlotte Rotary that has 250 members, I think. 300 and some members. A little more than us. Floyd Lucas from Lake Hickory and David Hood, Lake Hickory. Welcome.
Welcome. And then, do we have any guests of Rotarians in the dining room down this row? Okay. How about in the middle? Mark. Past President Mark has a guest today.
Thank you, President John. I have with me Douglas Licasio. He is our Director of Corporate Sales and Merchandising for the Crawdads. And Frank, where's Frank? He's setting up his blood drive. Well, Douglas agreed to give blood today, but I had to buy him lunch here, so I'm wondering if Frank has like a slush fund from the blood drive where I can get reimbursed for that. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Douglas, good to see you. How about on this side of the dining room? Clarence?
President John, I'm happy to introduce today Bobby Moore, who is an account manager with Duke Energy. Responsibilities relate to industrial customers in all of western North Carolina. Native of Burt County, lives in Conover, and we're happy to have him visiting with us today.
Everyone else looks familiar to me, so. Today is the day to, oh, okay. Tara would like to make an announcement today.
Yay, Tara. I'm standing in for Frank. He's at the blood drive. So I made it in just in time. But today is the day we're doing the blood drive up at St. Luke's. Starts out at 1 o'clock. And so if you haven't signed up, what Frank said was you can just come on by. If you're willing to give, they still have open slots that are available. It goes till 6 o'clock tonight, and it is open to the public. So if you know somebody that's willing to give blood, if it's not you, they are, please send them that way as well. So we're looking for a good turnout.
Thank you very much, Tara. And Jennifer wants to speak about this Saturday. We have tickets for Rotarians to the Lenore-Ryan football game.
Yes, that is correct. So we're going to have tailgating. We're going to set up the tents and the tables and food. Marie from the Tuesday Club is picking up barbecue sliders, chicken tenders, hush puppy slaw, all of that from Judges in Morganton. And we're just asking if you want to have some of the food and libations available, that you'll do a $5 donation to help pay her back. Tickets, we have free tickets that are available. For those of you that have already emailed me, come see me to pick them up. Otherwise, they're going to go back to Terry, but they will still be available at the game. So tailgating anytime after 3, the game starts at 7. Rain or shine, the tent will be set up on the practice field unless it's raining, and then there'll be signage telling us where to move. So come see me for tickets, and hope you all can join us.
Thank you, Jennifer. And there's a limited number of tickets, right?
We have 50 tickets
50
available,
tickets.
But we've still got plenty left, so I would think if many of you want to join.
And there's 4 hours of tailgating, or 3 hours of tailgating.
Yes, plenty of time.
And you also need, do you still need 3 volunteers to help with
Yes,
set up?
I do. I would love to have, there's 2 from the Tuesday Club, and we'd like to have a few volunteers from our club to set up the tent and the tables. LR is going to set up 1, but we're going to have 2 more 10x10 tents and tables for the food. So it's my birthday, so if somebody else would volunteer, it would really be nice if I don't have to be the only one there setting up on my birthday. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then Clarence, or not Clarence, Cliff has an announcement about polio, the post-polio survivors group.
Thank you, President John. I just wanted, the polio post-survivors group met this week, and I attended that meeting. Susan and I have exchanged places. Again, if any of you are interested in being on that committee, as we enable these fine folks who are citizens of our county and have just amazing stories. That's what I wanted to share of their experiences going through the trials and tribulations that they had to endure with polio and persevering through. It was very moving to be there and very great to hear these stories. So I think you would, and plus if you've never been in the museum there, it's also very interesting. So I just thought I'd report back to you, you know, what we're doing and how we're helping with this wonderful project. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cliff. And Alan Huffman had a couple of things he wanted to tell us about.
One of them will cost you $1. Yes, that's $1.
Pay up.
This Saturday and Sunday is the 32nd annual Murray's Mill Harvest Folk Festival at the Murray's Mill Historic Site is down there in Catawba. There'll be crafts, farm activities, animals, and those of you who haven't toured the mill or the store, you can do that also. If you go to the football game on Saturday, fine. Go to Murray's Mill on Sunday. Also, I'd like to meet the History Subcommittee that met 2 weeks ago. Bruce and I need to meet them here. If any of the presidents from the last 15 years want to share any information about their years with us, and you're here, you can stop by also.
Thank you, Alan. I apologize, Rich, I wrote down everybody in the wrong order, so I keep running back and forth. Charles Snipes has an update for us on one of our fellow Rotarians.
Thank you, President John. Our friend Jeff Ronenberg gave me permission to update our Rotarians on his situation. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, Jeff discovered that he had a large cancerous tumor in the kidney area. It's outside the kidneys. It's also attached to an artery. Today he checked into Carolina's Medical in Charlotte. At 11 o'clock this morning, he had a procedure to close off an artery, which was necessary before his surgery tomorrow. His surgery is scheduled for 12 noon tomorrow. His doctors are very optimistic. Jeff is very upbeat. He'll probably be in the hospital 5 to 7 days with recuperation of probably 5 weeks. It'd be great if all of us at 12 noon tomorrow could just pause and pray for Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. I apologize, I forgot to turn mine down. And then Bob Bungarger has our Rotary moment today. I really like you, Bob.
We have a few birthdays this week. First one, Steve Thomas is today. Steve here today. They'll celebrate. Right here. Yeah, right here. Come by. September 24th, we have 3 birthdays. John Bates, Steve Fry, and Jennifer Clark. I had a joke for you today, but unfortunately, it just would not do today to tell this joke because it involved the police department. Instead, I would like all of us to think how much we owe to the police department in all the cities. They are the thin blue line that is really all between us and complete anarchy. And I think that we all owe them a debt of gratitude. The only other thing I'd like to mention is today is the first day of fall, so it's not very pretty weather out there, but at least we get the cooling. The other health issues, this is the next week, I guess. Linda Lutz is going to have eye surgery due next week, I believe. And Lynn Lohr is going to have back surgery. So we all keep them in mind. So without any other jokes of any sort today, we'll put it off for another time, and I'll remember that.
Okay. Save that one up for I forgot to ask for announcements from the floor. Do we have anyone else who want to say? Okay. Thank you very much. So, Mark Teague is introducing our program today. Looks like she has a presentation, so we'll just keep this handheld.
Today we have Emily Serwich from the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation. Emily is fairly new to North Carolina. She moved here about 1.5 years ago from her native Michigan. She has spent so far her very young career in nonprofit service and is a recent graduate of law school as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I think today marks the, if I haven't miscounted, today marks the 18th Rotary speech I've given this year. So obviously coming around to Rotary clubs is one of my favorite things to do, and as a Rotarian I especially love to see how other clubs function and work. So it really is a pleasure. Thank you. And I will say also, the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation, our office, is located in Uptown Charlotte, and I live just outside of Uptown Charlotte, so it is a pleasure to be in Hickory today. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. Just to reiterate, my name is Emily Serwich, and I'm the Executive Director of the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what we do. How many people have heard of the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation? Okay, good. So I'm just going to brush through this pretty quickly. So we're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're a charitable organization. We're located in Charlotte, like I said, but we serve the 24 counties in both North and South Carolina that make up the Catawba Watery River Basin. A common question is, well, you know, how do you get money? Who are you supported with? We aren't funded by government. We aren't funded by large special interests. We completely have 650-ish, that fluctuates, members that annually support us and keep us going, and for that we are very grateful to them. We're a member of Waterkeeper Alliance, which some people have heard. Waterkeeper Alliance is a global organization. It's based in New York City. And anytime you hear of an organization called a lake keeper, a river keeper, bay keeper, that means that we're licensed under Waterkeeper. And worldwide, there are 300 waterkeeper organizations patrolling just over 3 million miles of waterways. So we are a part of that network, and we're very proud of that. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I always like to give a rundown of our river generally, because you would be shocked to know how very little people know about our river. If they live on or around a lake, they tend to think that that lake's it. But in reality, we have an entire system, and the lakes are the river. So it's about 225 miles long. It runs from Ridgecrest, North Carolina to Lake Marion, South Carolina. We have 5,000 miles of waterways in that river basin. We have 11 lakes and 14 dams. Like I said, we're in 2 states and 24 counties. And interestingly enough, we only have about 50 miles of free-flowing river remaining in the main stem of the river. We have, the rest of it is kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is contained within reservoirs. And of course, we were the first river system in the U.S. developed entirely to produce power. Usually when river systems were developed, it was for municipal supply or agriculture. And if you were in the American West, it was your river was developed by the Bureau of Reclamation. If you're in the East, the Army Corps. And here we have a very unique situation that we were developed for power production mainly. Of course, now our main source of drinking water for over 2 million people is this river. So that's a pretty interesting fact. And also, we are home to the world's largest habitat of rocky shoals spider lilies. Has anyone been to Lansford Canal State Park in South Carolina to see the spider lilies? Oh my gosh. You guys, you have to go. I'm serious. These are truthfully amazing. You can't tell from the photo, but these plants are about as tall as I am. The flowers are out the plants are in bloom for about 2 to 3 weeks, the end of May, beginning of June every year. The flowers are only out for about 24 to 48 hours each. So we've got 2 different locations in our basin where these habitats exist, and it's the only place in the world that we know of. And this is the largest. It's like a mile and a half. You can paddle through it. You can go to the state park and take a little walk and see the lilies and an overlook. And if you have never done it, it is so worth the drive down to Lansford to do it. Follow us on Facebook and pay attention next spring when we're having our eco tour, and sign up to come along. It's absolutely amazing, and it's really a treasure here for our basin. Okay, so I have to talk a little bit about some of the issues that face our river, which we don't have a shortage of those. So our current situation is a little dismal, but I'm going to talk about how CRF is working to sort of combat those issues. So our current situation is that we are one of America's most endangered rivers. Now, when I say endangered, I don't mean that we're like the most polluted or that we've got the biggest water scarcity concerns, but I'm saying that we are endangered and that we are at risk to being in that position. And so American Rivers, the large national organization, has come out with these lists, the endangered river list, you know, quite a bit, for like I think the last 10, 20 years maybe, and we've consistently made that list. We were number 1 in 2008, number 5 in 2013. We're also the 4th most stressed river from power plants in the United States, according to the Union of Concerned Scientists. They're an academic, engineering, and science-based organization that have sort of made water stress due to power plants their main concern. We have 11% of the nation's high hazard coal ash and 40% of the state of North Carolina is within about 29-mile stretch of our river, which we're working on, and that's probably where you hear CRF the most. You see us on the news the most with regard to our work with coal ash. And of course, we've got a bunch of other miscellaneous things that tend to be a little localized at times. We've got fish advisories. We have frequent droughts anymore over the last 10 years. You'll notice we've had several droughts that recur more severely and closer together in time. Creek impairment, I think almost 100% of the creeks in Mecklenburg County are considered impaired, which means they're not fit for prolonged human contact. And that's mainly because of stormwater runoff, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then of course, finally, the thing that's sort of becoming a bigger issue in our area, it was relegated to eastern North Carolina. For many years they've been dealing with concentrated animal feeding operations from a swine standpoint. Here we're starting to deal with it in a poultry standpoint. We have over 1,000 CAFOs in our basin. Each CAFO has over 30,000 poultry in it, so we have a lot of chickens here in our basin. And so we've got to figure out the best way to deal with the waste of all of those chickens. So with all of the little issues that we have, the little issues and the big issues, they can really be boiled down into, you know, the big 3. So these are the 3 big things that at any given time CRF is working on. Okay, first, obviously, coal ash. Second, development. I put stormwater in parentheses there because you'll see, you know, it's hand in hand. And then, of course, what we lovingly refer to as the energy-water nexus. And that's sort of an up-and-coming thing. That's not really huge yet, but we anticipate over the next 20 to 50 years, that's going to be the big issue here. Not just here, actually. It's going to be the big issue globally, that energy-water nexus, but we need to pay attention to it here. All right, so most of us are at least familiar generally with coal ash, you know, and what's going on here with it. Just gonna skim kind of over this because of your familiarity, and I want to leave time for questions. But coal ash generally is the byproduct of producing coal, burning coal to produce power. It contains high levels of toxic heavy metals, which is why it's a concern. And you know, it's stored in these very large impoundments on the side of the river. So our concern is, of course, several things. One, the leaks or the seeps at these impoundments. We want to fix those. But it's also a concern in that we are at risk for, you know, impoundment failure, and you know, that's a very dangerous thing for our river, not just from the standpoint of the event itself, but the fact is, you know, we don't have a plan B when it comes to drinking water, right? The Catawba's it. In fact, we have interbasin transfers that send 5 million gallons a day to the Yadkin. So we're already helping other neighboring basins out. We've got to try to keep our supply as healthy as possible. So, you know, I don't know, has anyone ever seen a coal ash impoundment? No? Okay. well, that's the glory of living up here. You don't really have them. So basically, I think calling them a pond, and I don't like the word because I think when we say pond, we think of this cute little thing, you know, in the woods. Well, coal ash impoundments are actually pretty large. They range in what we've seen from 70 feet to 120 feet tall. They've got a surface area. I wish I had put an aerial pic on here. But, you know, they've got tremendous surface area, a football field or two in some cases. And, you know, they're filled with millions of tons of coal ash. And that's just because we have to put it somewhere, right? A lot of people say, well, you know, hasn't this coal ash thing been a problem for 50, 60 years? It has not, actually, and this is why. So I'm going to be severe on environmentalists for a minute and kind of tell this little narrative. In the 80s, when the Clean Air Act was going through, everyone wanted to get rid of that ash, that smoke that was coming out of smokestacks. So the environmental movement went crazy saying, well, we need scrubbers in these smokestacks, which they're not wrong. We don't want polluted air. That's absolutely right. But when we put in those scrubbers into utility plants, into power plants, that ash was collected. Well, it didn't disappear, okay? Law of conservation massage. We had to put it somewhere. And at the time, storing it in impoundments near the plant was the best way we knew how. Now we know a little better, and thankfully, Duke Energy has acknowledged that these plants need cleaning up. We're not arguing with Duke about cleaning them up versus not cleaning up. That problem is solved. You know, they've acknowledged that cleanup has to happen. Now we're just arguing about how and when. Which, if you had to argue about something, I would prefer arguing about how and when versus do it, don't do it. So that's sort of where we are with coal ash, but we work with a lot of other organizations, the Southern Environmental Law Center, Sierra Club, other river keepers, and this is by far what we devote a lot of our time to, and a lot of our partnerships come out of that. The second big issue is development, and I think this one snuck up on us, right, as communities. Development and stormwater snuck up on us. So Charlotte, and Charlotte's the problem here, I'm going to be honest, but you are experiencing problems up here with stormwater as well. So Charlotte's the 17th largest city in the U.S. Our population is expected to grow 47% by 2030. Think about that for a second. 47% population growth from now until 2030. That is remarkable. And those people have to go somewhere, right? They have to live places, they have to work places, and that requires that we build things. Before the economic downturn in 2008, Charlotte was losing, the greater Charlotte area, not just Charlotte, was losing about 180 acres a day of natural space to the creation of impervious surface. And impervious surface, I basically mean something that water doesn't go through. Water runs off of impervious surface, so your buildings, parking lots, roads, we were losing 180 acres a day in 2008. And then the economy crashed and people weren't building, right? So then we went down for a few years to virtually no development, and now we're ramping back up. Now North Carolina Wildlife estimates that we're back up to about 130 acres a day. And by 2030, and this was, I actually didn't believe the guy from North Carolina Wildlife when he told me this. I had to look it up because I thought he was lying. But by 2030, only 3% of Mecklenburg County will remain natural space. The rest will be some type of manicured surface or impervious surface that does produce runoff. That's a big problem. Not only for water quality concerns, but because think of everything you've ever seen in a parking lot that winds up in your streams and creeks. And it happens even in smaller cities. It's not new to Charlotte. We have lots of stormwater and sedimentation issues that we investigate up here in the area as well. But here's sort of a demonstration. This is how it sneaks up on you. This is the problem with development. So in 1976, which was the year my dad graduated from high school, we had less than 90,000 acres developed in Charlotte. By 2006, we had just shy of 1 million. By 2030, we'll have over 1.7 million acres developed. And that yellow, of course, represents the impervious surface, the green, the natural space. So look at the growth that greater Charlotte area has experienced. And so a lot of people say, okay, yeah, we're losing the natural area. We get it, that's bad. But Where's the connection with water? What's the problem? Okay, when 1 inch of rain falls on a 1 acre parcel of woods, that means virtually nothing. That inch is evenly absorbed into the natural space, all is well, enters the water cycle. When 1 inch of rain falls on a 1 acre parking lot, that produces 27,000 gallons of stormwater runoff that's now directed into just a few points of egress from that impervious surface, rushing into streams and creeks, causing very, very severe instances of sedimentation and erosion, and this all washes out to the main stem of our river, ultimately creating water quality problems. It also is impacting water scarcity, so we're seeing that because there isn't even absorption due to impervious surface runoff, when we have a drought, we really have a drought. And when we have a rain, we have flooding. That's kind of what happens here. This was, this was during our stream cleanup at Briar Creek in Charlotte. And this is just a little urban creek, right? And look at that. Look at that instance of sedimentation. That should never happen anywhere, let alone a teeny tiny little stream. So that's the problem. And we're also, incidentally, and this is happening over time, and I don't have statistics on it necessarily, but we are losing some space in our reservoirs. And so that's not good because we have sedimentation built up and things. So we want to avoid that because we need those to be useful. Finally, the last of the big three, of course, is our energy-water nexus. I'm asked all the time, what's the best way to conserve water? Do we turn off the faucet while we're brushing our teeth? And yes, that technically conserves water, but the most effective way to conserve water is to conserve electricity. Power plant cooling accounts for the largest net loss of water in our river basin. We have, like I said, we've got 2 million people. And 2 million people not only need that water for direct use, cooking, cleaning, washing, all of that, but that 2 million people also need electricity. They need to run appliances. They need air conditioners and heaters. And we all want those things, but that means that we have to produce power and use water to produce that power. We also have had instances of thermal pollution. They're not as common as they could be, but when there are exceedances in the discharge temperature of that water, so meaning when power plants discharge that water after they're done using it for cooling, it's discharged hotter than the rest of the river. And so sometimes that is a shock to, if there are exceedances in their permitted discharge temperature, sometimes we see fish kills with that. We haven't had one this year, I don't think. Not a fish kill related to thermal pollution, but that is also one of the risks of that. Okay, so now I've talked about our large issues. Now I want to talk about how CRF is working on them or with them. So I mentioned that our mission is to educate and advocate to protect the Catawba River. So education is without a doubt one of our biggest projects, and that's education at all levels. We have noticed over the past, well, probably has been going on 10, 20 years, but we've really noticed in the past few years that kids are really lacking a connection to natural resource education. Kids, a lot of times they don't go outside a whole lot anymore. They're in front of something with a screen, right? That's more appealing to kids than going and playing next to the stream or creek or whatever. And so we notice this is kind of a severe impediment, not only from the standpoint of as they get older, they're not valuing it, but they're also making poor choices when it comes to conservation, water conservation and things, and we want to try to reverse that. So we have a couple of different programs in several phases of education. So first and foremost, we started last year, so it's only a year old, it's very brand new, a program for every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader in South Carolina. We started with South Carolina because we work with Clemson Extension and they have different state education standards. We hope to move it to North Carolina in the next year, and we want to start up here in the northern part of the basin and work our way. We'll tackle Charlotte last. But we piloted this program with 18 courses this spring in Lancaster, Chester, and Fort Mill in South Carolina, and we are starting it in earnest. The real program starts this fall, and we hope to reach 1,000 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders just this year. In our first year of water education, we offer them 4 courses that conform to their state scholastic standards, so that teachers don't have to feel like they're sacrificing a day to let us come in and teach. We're actually teaching the things that they are required to teach their students anyway. So we work with them and we work with Extension to make sure we're doing that, and we're very excited about that. My goal, my dream for that program is that in 10 years, CRF is supplying every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader in both North and South Carolina with water education that sticks with them. And our middle school, for our middle school students, we have this great program. We bring every summer about 400 kids out to the river. We give them a quick water conservation course, a little water safety lesson, and then we teach them how to kayak. And that is very fun. That's actually a picture of some of our students this year. In this program, I always thought it was just some fun little thing that we did and, you know, that people thought was cute and it was great. But then last year we decided to survey the kids before they took the course and ask them how much they knew about water and how comfortable they were with it. Over 87% of them answered the faucet when we asked them where their water came from, and over 90% of them had never been to the river and did not know how to swim. So it was funny the first time we got the quiz results back, but then when the survey results kept coming in like that, it got less funny, it got less funny, less funny, until finally we were like, you know what, this is serious. We've got to do something before middle school, because apparently it's happening before middle school years. So that's what that was the impetus for the elementary school program. And of course, finally, we offer adult education. We have groups of folks throughout the basin at every major lake called cove keepers. And we train these folks how to identify, document, and report pollution, and then they sign up and take a patrol zone, and every week or every other week when they get a chance, they will go out and they'll conduct a little patrol. If they notice a problem, they'll let us know, or they'll let the proper authorities know, and then maybe every month or every other month, some only meet every quarter, they go to a monthly meeting up here in their area where they report on something that they've noticed or they haven't, and they hear a guest speaker talk about water or some issue that impacts water. And those are great. We could not function without those cove keepers because we only have a staff of 4 full-time people, 2 part-time people. That's not enough to patrol our entire river basin. So in order to do what we do, we have to train adults who are experienced with boating and feel comfortable doing this kind of thing. So if you're interested, let me know, because we're always looking for more. And we do 5 of those trainings throughout the basin a year. As far as our volunteer programs go, I already mentioned cove keepers and water watchers. We do major river sweeps on every lake. We do stream and creek cleanups. We are also looking for education volunteers. We'll be looking for education volunteers in your area next year at this time. So I'll be sure to reach out to the Rotary clubs because we're looking for volunteer teachers to help us with those courses in schools. So be on the lookout if you're interested. We have countless events like eco-tours and things where we take people out on the river. We want everyone to be able to appreciate the river. It's such a fantastic resource. And occasionally we need office volunteers for things, and so we have some folks that do that. Finally, our Riverkeeper program, which is the program that we're associated with the most. That's our Riverkeeper, Sam Perkins. He's like a program director, and he does our river patrols and inspections. He does a basin flyover every other week. We partner with an organization out of Asheville called South Wings, and South Wings just volunteer pilots that will fly us around our basin so that we can take photos and inspect from the air some larger issues. We do a host of water sampling and testing throughout the basin. We collect other samples and tests that other people do as well, and then analyze those. And then, of course, he also does a large portion of our advocacy and policy work. So, like I said, we're membership supported, so if you're interested, please go to our website and consider being a member. It starts at $50 a year and goes up from there, but any support is fantastic, and that also gives us teeth as far as the number of people that we can say we represent. That's incredibly useful to us, so consider doing that. And please follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all those social media sites, because truthfully, that's how we reach a large number of people with events that we're doing and with things we're doing. So you'll never hear a speaker ask you to take your phone out and do things and mess around with it while they're talking, but I am today. Go ahead and take your phones out and add us right now. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty version of the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation, but I do hope I saved a few minutes for questions, because I usually get quite a few. So, anyone? Yes, ma'am?
What's a good way to dispose of coal ash?
Well, okay, so there are two competing viewpoints when it comes to this. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So she asked what was a good way to deal with or clean up coal ash. So I said there are two competing viewpoints when it comes to this, and isn't there always? So, you know, okay, so from the environmentalist standpoint, the only way that is a proven solution to fully cleaning up coal ash is to excavate the site, to dig it all out. Oh, there's a dog. I didn't know that, okay.
Circus dog in training.
Right, okay. So excavation requires, you know, I'm really oversimplifying this process, but you basically drain the water out of the pond, you dig out the ash, you furrow it so it dries, then you haul it away in a truck or train to a landfill with a synthetic liner. After it's all in there, you cap it, and you know, all is well. And I'm of course, like I said, oversimplifying it. That while that method is the one method that we know for sure has been done and will clean up the ash, the reality is it's more expensive than the alternative. It also has risks of its own, okay? I mean, when you are digging millions of tons of ash or soil, anything, out of an existing impoundment, that does have risks for the people doing the work. You know, the likelihood of an impoundment failure does go up anytime you've got construction work and stuff on it. So there are risks there. And of course, transporting all of that ash, anytime you transport something by any method other than pipeline, and sometimes pipeline, as we found out, your risk of contamination increases with that as well. So that has its problems, but it is the only way we know of that will fully take care of and has been proven to do so. Now, Duke and you know, a couple of their experts advocate for a method called cap in place, which is essentially what it sounds like. It's leaving the ash there and putting a cap on it. That is obviously much more expensive, and from a safety standpoint of workers, and because you're not transporting that ash, that's better. The problem with that, of course, is that you're leaving it there, and you have to perpetually monitor and be concerned for groundwater contamination, and that, I mean, that's not an enviable situation. Just ask any of the couple hundred of families living, you know, by the Plant Allen on Lake Wiley, and they'll tell you it is not fun to live day by day from bottled water, and they are getting water hooked up through this whole other thing. We'd be here 3 hours if I had to explain all about coal ash to you guys. But the reality is, we advocate for excavation. It's more expensive, and it does come with risks, but it's the only way we know that has already been done, and we know cleans it up fully. And cap in place is still somewhat experimental, and it's not without cost, and it has issues associated with that too. So that, I hope that answers your question. Do we have time for one more? Okay. Yes,
have
sir.
you looked into using drones? You know, you've got the photographers, but use drones.
Yeah, we have used them before. Our cove keepers have, you know, there's one gentleman in our company, in our cove keeper group, or friends with someone in our cove keeper group, has a drone company, and he's licensed to do it, because you can't just, I mean, not every Tom, Dick, and Harry can take a drone and fly it around. You have to be licensed, and you have to be trained, and you know, have permission to do so. But they have used them, and we also have a professor, Dr. Philip Otienburu, who's on our board of directors, and he's a biology professor at Johnson C. Smith, and he and his class did a drone project where they went and they looked at flooding over South Carolina last fall, and boy, was that pretty epic. It's on YouTube. I think we posted it. If you go back through our stuff, you can see it. But yeah, it is incredibly useful, and that's why we do flyovers. That's why Riverkeeper does flyovers, because it allows us to inspect and control a large portion of area in a much more economical way. So, all right, ladies and gents, that's it for me, I think.
Thank you. sure to take other questions. Okay, we have a gift for you. It's a Rotary tote bag. You can announce your love for Rotary anywhere you go with that bag.
And I do, obviously.
And now, if you'll come over this way with me, we need your help with our raffle. So, you're going to make a friend. Because you will draw the winning ticket in the raffle, and that's for the winner to choose.
Oh, okay.
The winner will choose from a card and possibly win some money. How much money will they win today?
Okay. We have 49 cards, 2 jokers, and a total pot is $250.
Thank you, Lynn. So now, have we tumbled the tumbler? Okay.
Oh, whoops, there's some, there we go.
Uh-oh. Somebody taped theirs to the top of it.
They really did.
We're having a static problem. All right. Set up some more. All right. And the winning number, last 4 digits are 3201. 3201. Check them over.
No new friends for me.
Bobby's got a... Do we have to try again? Last call. 3201. All right. Doesn't happen for... Someone ran off to give blood. That's what it is. All right. Second try. 3236. Ah, Schuford. All right. We'll go through the lottery verification process, of course. All right. Drawing blind. Here we go. Ah.
2 of hearts.
2 of hearts. It's a free lunch for you. This is your new friend Emily. So don't forget you have flyers on your table for the cart event with Carl White on October 25th. Thank you to our visiting Rotarians and guests for joining us today. Guests, I hope you will come back again and possibly join our club.
President John.
Yes, ma'am.
We also have sign-ups over here for Rotarian Idol.
Oh, yes, we have sign-ups over here for Rotarian Idol Committee. Remember, this is your way to avoid digging sweet potatoes on October 20th. All right, and please don't forget your cart buckets. This week and next week are the last 2 weeks of our anonymous donor match, up to $100 for cart donations. So yes, I want to hear that sound of change, bills, credit cards with the passwords. All right, now if we'll conclude the meeting with the 4-way test. If you'll stand and join me. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?